and welcome to another edition of Trader Talk TV. Today I've got Laurie Goode in the office here to talk about the evolution of CTV programmatic buying. Laurie, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm very well. For the viewers, Laurie, can you just do a quick introduction to yourself and we can jump straight into it?
That sounds great. I'm Laurie Goode. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Index Exchange, and I also lead learning and development for the company.
Brilliant. And snappy and short. I love it. Today we're talking about programmatic in CTV and the evolution of it. We've got Open RTB 2.6 coming along very, very soon. It's actually in market and we're just trying to put it to place across the ecosystem. But I want to talk about the current state of play at the minute, Laurie, particularly Open RTB 2.5, and why it doesn't really address that CTV market.
Right. So just taking a step back,
Yeah.
Open RTB was a series of protocols. It's a communication protocol, basically, for helping to scale real-time bidding. And it was originally designed for web. Mm-hmm. OpenRTB 2.5 that you mentioned, it was originally launched in December of 2016. And so now that's over 6 years old.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, streaming and connected TV, particularly in the United States, but in other markets as well, has seen a steep incline, particularly over the last 3 years. And so applying web protocols and communication protocols in a CTV or streaming TV environment simply doesn't work as well, especially when there are expectations from media owners and from buyers and from viewers around a linear TV experience.
Yeah, so the landscape has completely changed in the last 6 years. Mm-hmm. We have, as you said, streaming channels, fast channels. The CTV space has evolved dramatically, and the technology hasn't really caught up yet.
Right.
But 2.6, right? Let's talk about that because it's quite exciting. There's a lot of new features, a lot of new things that's going to make CTV buying more interesting to buyers and more interesting to the sellers themselves. So can we talk about how it would look typically for a CTV seller and buyer, please?
Absolutely. So Index Exchange worked with the IAB Tech Lab and other parties starting in 2021. Mm-hmm. And so technically, RTB 2.6 launched last April, but adoption has been slower. And so that's really what we want to talk about is all of the benefits and value that will be important for CTV to even scale without 2.6.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of walk you through the experience and what is kind of expected here. But, okay, if you have this is you, Kieran.
That's me.
Yep, this is you.
Come on, here.
Yep. Here. Actually, you will be unhappy here.
Yeah.
And then you're really happy here. Okay, because there's a dog. Okay, so you're watching your favorite show of Kieran.
Yeah.
And in between these shows, this is a single episode, are ad breaks.
Yeah.
Okay. In linear TV viewing, these are ad breaks, and if you think about media owner monetization and what buyers want to buy, buyers want to buy the ad slots that are closest to the viewing content. So typically in an episode, ad buyers think about the first ad break and the last ad break, not so much the middle ad break, and the position within the ad break itself is also important. In CTV, these are not called ad breaks, they're called ad pods. And the way OpenRTB 2.5 works today is that if a media owner sends out a request, they get a bunch of creative back, and then it's at their discretion how they want to organize or arrange those ads within the ad pod, and where in the episode they want those things to play. But that yields less, I guess, yield and revenue for the media owner because they don't really get to dictate where in the episodes or where in the position the ad appears. And it also is no transparency for a buyer. So if a buyer wants to buy something very specific, today in RTB 2.5, they have no idea where their ad appeared.
Right.
Where in the episode or where in the position. So there's a lack of transparency. And then if you take that to the viewer level, if you've watched CTV at all, any episode, you get the same ad over and over again.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lack of control. It's frustrating for the viewer. And then the media owner, it's a terrible experience, I think, if they're showing the same ad. And there's no creative separation also, or competitive separation between different brands that might be competing. And so there's a lack of control and a lack of transparency today.
Yeah, I was seeing the same Hewlett Packard ad on Bloomberg continuously for like 6 months. to the point where actually just put it in German just to mix it up. So tell us, Ben, how does so let's talk about that specifically, right? So this is ad podding. How does 2.6 change that? What's the sort of difference in terms of how you buy that inventory in between break inventory versus what 2.6 can do for buyers?
So you want to think about, again, thinking about the communication protocol that OpenRTB gives. It allows for more specified signaling. And so a media owner has more control over what they sell and how they signal that to the buyer in order to gain the highest demand. And so some of the things that RTB 2.6 introduces are 3 different kinds of the way ad pods are now broken up. So if you assume this is a 90-second ad break or ad pod, actually, oh no, there's no eraser. Okay. You can sell this in a structured way. So there's the structured ad pod, and this is fixed number of ads within the break in a fixed time slot.
Right.
So let's say these are 30 seconds each.
Right.
Okay, that's one way that you can construct the ad pod. And again, it's the media owner gets to decide how it's constructed. The second one is dynamic ad podding. And dynamic ad podding, if you assume this is 90 seconds, can be broken up in any combination of those seconds.
Right.
So you can say this is an entire 90-second ad slot. You can break it up into 30s, or you can break it up into 2 30 seconds and a 60-second ad slot to construct it. And this is really based on demand. And so a media owner can define it as dynamic with certain parameters, and then what comes back is the maximum demand to make this.
So if you put on dynamic, it actually
constructs it on the fly.
Constructs it. Oh wow, that's interesting.
It's in real time.
And it will look at all the demand coming in, and it will just build it based on the best yield.
Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
And then the third type is a hybrid of the two. And so the third type is, let's say, this is the dynamic portion. So let's say you have 60 seconds of dynamic, and again, you can break that up in 15, 15, 30. And then this is the structured. And so a good use case for this is if you have a programmatic deal between the media owner and the buyer.
Right,
and
a PMP or a PG.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
And you say, I only want to sell this in a structured fixed way to this buyer.
Right.
And then the rest of the pod can be dynamic.
Right.
Structured on the fly for yield.
Okay.
So in this way, this allows much more control over how you maximize and optimize yield within an ad break or the ad pod, and then it allows the buyer more determination in being able to meet those requests.
Okay.
Okay. And there are a few signals that were introduced as part of that.
Yeah.
These are the fields that were introduced. So there's pod duration, which is the overall length of the pod. So this, again, is a signal that the media owner can place into the bid to identify to the buyer, this is the total length of the pod as it's being constructed. The second one is min duration. I'm going to add a third one, max duration. These kind of are, I think about these things somewhat together. But these are the time range in seconds that's allowable. And so that gives, again, another signal about what to send back and understanding the demand that's coming back.
Right.
In, right? Okay, sorry. Okay. There's required duration. Required duration is a very specified length of time in seconds.
Yeah.
And so this is a good use case in a live streaming event where you need a specified length of time if you're not sure when the ad pods will be coming within the content.
Okay, that's interesting because live streaming was kind of almost sort of seen as a very difficult content piece to monetize, particularly in the CTV space.
That's right. I think that's one that continues to evolve, but this helps solve for that because it specifies more so that you can maximize no matter where the position is within the content itself. And then max sequence, is the maximum number of ads that you're willing to take within a pod.
Okay.
And that's, again, to monitor the viewer experience.
Right.
You might want to say, instead of, technically in dynamic, you could break this up into 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But that would be 9 ads in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So you can specify the number of ads. And then the final one, which I think is really exciting, is its minimum CPM per second. This one is exceptional for a media owner because then they can define, instead of having a blanket floor for an ad, a floor price, they can define what the minimum floor CPM is per second of the ad. So it linearly scales with the length of the creative itself.
Okay.
So now they can achieve actual yield for those ads versus being transparent and having to set a blended
And that would be
floor.
set in the bid stream, like whether it's a CPM, whether it's per second. Do buyers want to buy on time versus CPM? What's the sense of that?
Well, it's CPM per second, so it combines the two.
Right.
And so a buyer would not want to pay the same floor price
Right.
for a 15-second ad
Yeah.
as they might for a 60-second ad.
Yeah.
So it allows that scale both for the media owner to maximize yield,
Yeah.
but also allows that specificity instead of universally applying a lowest common denominator,
Yeah.
if you will.
Is there other signals being passed in the bid stream as well? Because I've been reading that there's classification piece as well, which is super important for buyers. What am I buying against? When
Yes.
where is it, etc. That type of thing. Like, is there anything like that that's coming for the buyers themselves?
There is. And in fact, that could be a whole other whiteboard session, but
Yeah.
it's content category is something that was part of OpenRTB
Yeah.
2.6. That blankets everything, and it's mostly for web. And so 2.6 broke it down into 3 different categories, like an audience category, so that you actually can apply signals between defined portions or components of that out to buyers, and buyers can bid on specific components within that instead of one umbrella category.
Yeah, and why has it been slow to uptake? What's the sort of, why is it a case of people dragging their feet, or is it a case that it's so new that people are trying to get their head around it? What's the sort of thought process about getting this properly implemented across the ecosystem?
I think that because they already can bid in podding and the integration already exists with 2.5, I think any new upgrades, when they require investment from multiple parties, will always take adoption time. So it launched in April. I think it's around education and understanding what people actually get out of this, which I think is, again, it's media owner, buyer, and viewer experience.
Yeah.
That is a result of OpenRTB 2.6. But the other thing is that every party in the chain has to adopt 2.6 in order for it to work. So
Right.
if a media owner is passing the signal to the buyer,
Right.
and the DSP or whoever in the chain doesn't honor or recognize those signals, then that match doesn't work. And so I think that's the other thing, is that for it to work properly, we need to get everyone in the entire chain to adopt 2.6 so that the signals are passed through consistently. That's the point of the standards.
Right, and this is perfect for spot market, which would be your open marketplace, and any sort of direct sort of deals you've already got in place.
That's right.
It's in the dynamic stuff, and the actual fixed hybrid piece is actually something that the broadcasters, streamers, CTV owners would be able to set up.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's just much more control, so that media owners can maximize it. Viewers don't see, a lot of the same ads over and over, and duplication and experience.
Okay. In terms of what Index is doing, because obviously you were one of the sort of leading lights on the header bidding and the display piece many moons ago, and still are. But what's your sort of like play within the CTV space like? So there's a lot of companies in that CTV space. How do you approach it, and how do you work with sort of the streamers, the broadcasters, the video owners?
I would say that just a couple of years ago, we rebuilt the Exchange from the ground up. And so if you think about the number of years that Index has been in business, almost 20. You're right, we pioneered header bidding a number of years ago, but rebuilding the Exchange from the ground up allowed a ton of efficiency in the updated code, and that included not only efficiencies in how we compute auction per second, but also in the ability to build faster and to scale more for these newer channels and formats. And when we launched that, we went really hard into newer channels and formats, including video and CTV, where we see the importance is that CTV has to scale, and it scales through, I think, 3 things, which are principles of programmatic in general. Around quality. So there's an expectation, especially in a CTV environment where the TV screens are bigger, where there's higher content and viewership, that the quality of the advertising experience, the quality of the media owner site is super important. And so I think reviewing every single creative and making sure it's a safe environment is really important. The second is around efficiency and control. Again, without the ability to control and optimize for the yield that you have, and without buyers being able to control what they bid against, is really important in making sure that's as efficient as possible. And then I think in deals is an important component of that, I would say too. And
100%,
so we're investing a lot in private deals.
Because of the supply constraint, there is going to be more direct deals. Like, it's not the same as display. There is a very finite supply of quality content to run ads against versus what the web can do, which is basically infinite supply.
Yes, and so we're really investing a lot in our deal infrastructure and deal capabilities and targeting. And then on the final side, which is something I think I've said a million times so far, it's around transparency.
Right.
And for it to scale, I think buyers have to know what they're buying and be able to dictate what they're willing to buy at the price that they want to pay for. And media owners need to be able to provide that transparency in what they're selling, what's optimal, what the price is in order to yield maximization. So I think the transparency part is critical, and that's where the protocols come in.
Yeah, I imagine this is perfect for the CTV world, right? And CTV is obviously growing in this part of the world as well. But online video is pretty strong here. But I can imagine this can be applied to video as well. If you see kind of like, you're doing your pre-rolls, there is obviously this podding piece is really, really interesting because you could have that hybrid model where you can like have a direct deal and then you can have your spot market piece before it as well. So it's super interesting that you could actually apply this to online video as well as CTV.
Video is just growing exponentially no matter what device or screen you're watching it against. And so I think as more and more dollars and attention goes towards video formats, the more it's important to think about these standards and protocols in ads.cert, and sellers.json. All of that is critical to making it work well. Yeah.
When do you expect this to be sort of adopted then? This year? Will we see more of this year? I'm pretty excited about the idea of like being able to buy on a per second basis. That's a pretty interesting sort of evolution of buying thinking.
The possibilities are really exciting, actually. When we start to go through the different use cases and the way that media owners could potentially optimize yield almost on a per second basis dynamically is amazing. I think that I'm hoping that adoption will increase significantly this year. I think as soon as we start to see some of that adoption across the chain, the demand will be higher. I think a lot of the power comes from the buyers and what the buyers want to be buying to make sure that everyone in the chain is implementing these. And so I'm hoping that this will happen this year, but in order for us to scale CTV and streaming TV, it has to be adopted.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, Laura, we'll clear up. It's great to see that Cartoon Kieran had a happy ending here. This is where Ireland win the World Cup against France this year. And his dog is very happy as well.
Very happy.
So, Laurie, thank you for your time. It was a brilliant run through OpenRTB 2.6 and its effect on CTV and streaming ads. So thank you for your time.
Of course. Thank you.
And that was Trader Talk TV, and we will see you next time.